Hello guys, welcome. My name is Vasan Singrana and I'm working as an application security consultant in Koenig-Solutions Limited. Today in this video, I'm going to give you a demonstration on cross-site scripting attack. I will give you in this demonstration what is cross-site scripting, what are the types of cross-site scripting, how cross-site scripting can affect your web application, and how cross-site scripting can affect your business too. Now, if you can see, there is on my slide it is written cross-site scripting attack in Java. So many of you have now at this moment have questions. Is cross-site scripting attack can happen only in Java? So PHP developers and ASP developers were thinking that they are safe. No guys, you're not safe. Cross-site scripting attack can happen any of the platform. But because it's a demand of people, they wanted to know that what is cross-site scripting attack and how cross-site scripting attack happens in Java and how we can prevent this attack in Java. So the patches which I will give after this a short description is the code will be in Java, the patches will be in Java, but I will cover all those topics. I will cover the neutral material of cross-site scripting, like what is cross-site scripting, then what are the types of cross-site scripting, how attacks can happen, and who are responsible for the attacks. Okay, after the session, if you have any doubt, you can mail me a question at my email id person.singh@koenig-solution.com. Okay, so let's begin the session. During this session, I will be talking about the introduction of the cross-site scripting. What is cross-site scripting? How important is cross-site scripting? See, cross-site scripting is important for the attacker's point of view and for a security point of view and from the developer point of view. Okay, if you are a good developer, you're developing an application, any of the application, I'm talking about any of the application, it can be a web, it can be of mobile too, so you want to protect your site as much as you can, or you have to write a code which is very secure. So if you are aware with the security, if you are aware with the terminologies like cross-site scripting, like SQL injection and all that, then you are safe. Your code writing will be safer. So the cross-site scripting is important for the from both of the view, from the attacker point of view and from the secure point of view, and also for the management point of view too, because as if you are a member of a management team or if you are a leader of a sale team, then you don't ever want that your site is down or your site is defaced for some moment. I hope it's clear. Okay, then after that, exploiting cross-site scripting, I will give you that how attackers do an cross-site script attacks on your site and what is the best method to prevent the cross-site scripting. I will also give you a brief demo for the whole from the type of cross-site scripting, and then you can ask me a question or you can mail me a questions. So let's begin. What is cross-site scripting? Cross-site scripting is a vulnerability. Right, it is a vulnerability in your application that allows a malicious user or an attacker to run arbitrary JavaScript against your web application, or I mean to say against your vulnerable web application. Right guys, if someone is running cross-site scripting against your web application, that means your developers are not so smart because they have not written a not so smart code. I mean to say not a secure code. Okay, so cross-site scripting is a vulnerability. Actually, an attacker, when he does an attack, he runs a JavaScript code against the web application, and as a result of which the script runs always on the browser, and it will run on the browser and it will do the necessary work which an attacker wants to do it. Okay, so cross-site scripting is usually divided into two parts: reflected cross-site scripting and stored cross-site scripting. Sometimes stored cross-site scripting people generally say and call it as persistent cross-site scripting. So let's begin with the reflected cross-site scripting. In a reflected cross-site scripting, an attacker finds a cross-site scripting hole in a web application. And how an attacker can find a loophole or a cross-site scripting hole in a web application, or there might be a question from developer's point of view, like how we will come to know that our application is secure or not. Yes, this is the very right question. You can ask me that how we can come to know that our site is secure or not, or are we affected with the cross-site scripting, or are we affected with the reflected cross-site scripting, or are we affected with the stored cross-site scripting? Yes, my friends, the question is very demandable and everyone wants to know the answer of this question. I tell you what, the if you have not implemented a proper data validation, or you are trusting the input of the request which is coming, or you're trusting what I say, if you are trusting the URL, the only two cases where an attacker can do an attack is the input thing and from the URL. So you have to implement a proper validation in order to check what in order to check that your site is implementing a proper input validation and also a URL validation, right? So let's come again back to our reflected cross-site scripting. The very first thing is, what is a reflected cross-site scripting, right? What is reflected cross-site scripting is the very first question. Reflected cross-site scripting are attacks. These are those attacks, generally they are known as non-persistent cross-site scripting attacks, and these attacks can run on the browser, and or when they will run only in one case, when your web application when vulnerable. And if your web application is vulnerable to this type of attack, it will pass unvalidated input sent through request back to the client. For example, here you can see on my screen, if an attacker finds a cross-site scripting loophole in your web application, what he will do, he will craft a URL stealing some sensitive information and discuss it so that it appears legitimate. Now he will send the whole information, or he can mail the whole information to the malicious, to some user of your site. By doing some social engineering, he will demand a user, a common or a legitimate user, to click on the link. If user get fooled by the attacker, he will click on the link and the sensitive information of the user will be stolen by an attacker, and the bank will do the functionality, but the sensitive information has been stolen by an attacker. So in a reflected cross-site scripting, your business can get introduced because your web application image is going down with the business purpose. Because as in the Indian mythology, the very famous person has said this: it takes a long time to create your image, to create a reputation, but it takes only 1 or 2 seconds to release your name. As big as your name is, it will take as less as time to be a lesser person in the market. So if you want to maintain your name in the market and you don't want to lose your customers or your clients, especially for the security reason, then save yourself from by applying a proper input validation through input validation and a proper URL validation that can be caught we can combine the both thing as a proper data validation. Now, in a reflected cross-site scripting, attacker can find it out in the URL. Like as you can see, here is a exploit URL www.nightbits.com, and search. Someone has searched that thing and he has placed it and it's hit on the site. Now, what can affect? It can relate like this. An attack can happen like this. But this is a cross-site scripting attack, which is again a reflected cross-site scripting. Okay, now reflected cross-site scripting is not going to store anywhere in the databases, right? It is running on the browser, and a person, what an attacker can do, if he find it out that there is a URL or there is a site which is vulnerable to reflected cross-site scripting, he can use that. He can craft a URL and he can send it to the user, and by making a fool of the user, he can make them to forcefully click to the link, right? And once they have clicked to the link, their sensitive information is gone. So reflected cross-site scripting is affecting in this way. So if your user are not so smart, then they will get fooled by an attacker. So reflected cross-site scripting, as I said, is not going to store anywhere in the databases, so it's affecting the system of the users, not to the server at anyhow. Now, just for an example, if any of the code which was written behind the slide before is like this. He's taking the first name. He's taking the first name directly from the text boxes, and he's taking the last name directly from the text boxes, right? So as a result, what is happening, because he's taking everything directly from the text boxes, or he has not implemented a regex expression. He's trusting the input which is coming in the request. So that's allow an attacker to do an attack. Now, to give you the countermeasure for reflected cross-site scripting is this code. This is the regular expression. What is the regular expression? Now, many of you have the question that what is the regular expression? Regular expression is nothing. Regular expression is a concept in all of the programming in which we generally match the pattern. If we talk about Java, Java provides the Java util.regex package for pattern matching with regular expression. Regular expression is matching your pattern with some string. Okay, again coming back to Java, Java regular expression are very similar to any of the programming language and very easy to learn. A regular expression is a special sequence of character and helps you match or find other strings or sets of string. Use a specialized syntax held in a pattern. They can be used to search, edit and manipulate text and data. In Java, we use a java.util.regex package. Primarily consists of the three classes: pattern, matcher and pattern syntax exception. I have not used a matcher class over here, but I have used a pattern, and I have used a predefined method called compile. Now with pattern.compile method, I am comparing the regex string variable with my pattern. If it get matched with the pattern, okay, then what will happen? All those tags will get rejected because I don't trust those regular expressions. So regular expression in any of the language is a special sequence of character that help us to match out or find other string or set of strings. Using a specialized syntax held in a pattern. So if you're if you have implemented this concept, or you're not trusting directly the input which is coming from the text boxes, then you're safer. So at this moment where you have implemented and you have trusted, like you will accept the first name directly from the first name, you will accept the last name directly from the next text box, it will definitely, the code is definitely vulnerable. And this is the patch for your code. Now let's talk about store cross-site scripting. Store cross-site scripting, it is because in reflected cross-site scripting, nothing is going to be stored anywhere in the databases. But in store cross-site scripting, everything will go into the database. Right? Now, just for the demonstration, a store cross-site scripting is affecting the web application in a very high amount. How? Let's take an example. Let's say I have a website in which I'm allowing a user to write his blog. Suppose I have many users and they can write blogs. Let's say A, B and C. There are 3 users who write blogs on my site. Because I am trusting the user, I'm trusting the input which is coming from the request, so I'm not checking any of the inputs. I just allow my user to write blogs. Or in many of the sites you have seen that a person, if he is authorized, he can do a comment. He can write a comment. A very best example is stackoverflow.com, which allows a user to write their comments after they read out, or it allows user to post their question. Now the site like this can be, the functionality like this can be treated as a dangerous. Why? Because every time a user who is authorized, he's coming, he's writing the blogs, and all what he's writing is going to be stored anywhere in the database. And because after fetching the because Stack Overflow works like fetching the data from the database and showing it into the same page, what it can result, it can result like if someone has written some cross-site scripting, or if they have written some script tags and they have inserted the script tags into the database, what can happen if if the page is coming from the database, taking a value from the databases, the page will come along with the script. But as I said, JavaScript always run on the browser. So what can be the result if someone has crafted some scripts, or if someone has written something like if they have crafted some images, all those images will be put in directly to your web application. So let's continue my example what I was giving. Suppose I have a site in which I'm allowing a user to write their blogs. So let's say I have 3 users, A, B and C. Now A is a legitimate user, B is a legitimate user, but the third user is not legitimate. He is a hacker, or he is an attacker. Now what? Because it's very hard to distinguish between the user, and because I trust the input. So what I did, I allowed the users to write their article on my web application, and now I'm allowing everyone to write their blogs. Because see, it's very hard to find out that who will be acting as like a attacker, who will be a legitimate user. You can only distinguish this only in one way, when you are implementing a data validation. So let's again back to my example. What I was saying, like C is acting as a legitimate user, but he in his blog is writing some JavaScript. Let's demonstrate this. Suppose This is my page. Here I have to write the title, so I'm writing like anonymizer, and I write my script. Okay, I know it's very childish work, but due to lack of time I'm showing you only this. See, when I will write the title and I have written the message, I have written alert hacked in script. When I do a submit, my blog is written here. If suppose A and B are my blog followers, or if suppose in future someone comes and looking to the title of my blog, he get very excited and he clicked on to my blog link. When he clicked, you can see there is a pop-up on the screen which is showing you are hacked, right? This was just the demonstration where I have shown you that a particular user can store, a particular attacker can write anything which my website is storing anywhere into the database. What can be the result? The result can be not only one user is affected with the JavaScript, but all those users who is following the C person will be affected with this attack. And stored cross-site scripting is much more affecting your business, because everything is stored on the web application, right? So how you can protect yourself from the store cross-site scripting? There are many ways to write the codes, right? The regular expression is the most usable code by the Java programmers to save their self from cross-site scripting attack. So the same code which I have implemented before, you can use it and you can save yourself from store cross-site scripting attack. Now again, I would like to give you the prevention on the cross-site scripting attacks. See, this prevention is not only for the Java users, this is for everyone. Check the input which is coming. Check the URL which is coming. Always implement a server-side validation. Do a URL encoding and use of good web application firewall like mode security can protect you from any attacks, from cross-site scripting, from SQL injection, from any other attack. Validate input and validate URL will be counted as a proper data validation. Server-side validation should be always there. There should be no client-side validation. If you are good in JavaScript and you think that you can implement the whole thing in a very fast way by using a JavaScript validation, yes my friend, you can increase the faster accessibility, but your security at that case will be lower. How? Client-side validation is not good as comparison to server-side validation. I will cover this topic on my next video. I hope you all enjoy the video. Kindly contact for your question the mail which I have shown you before. Thank you.